Guys, so in my last video on the debate between ZILLE'S Brink and the ANC rep regarding either leasing or probably giving out or selling the Pretoria City Hall at Shwane there to the Iranian mission or the Iranian embassy, I saw a lot of a few comments anyway on that video that actually made really remarkable, really intriguing statement to me, saying that somehow Cape Independence is slowly getting attractive. And for me, that comment actually rose a lot of issues in my head, because I know on this channel I've actually carried a debate between I think Clement Maniatella and the Cape Independence Phil Craig in a really heated debate where they actually went head to head with each other. I'll be having that debate on the show notes here to really, and I think it was among the first times I really had a really clear debate for the Cape Independence movement by Phil Craig. And the comments on that video were really, really interesting. I'll have the video in the show notes. You guys can actually check it out. But here in this video, and I think this is the first time I'm really hearing Helen Zille address this whole issue about Cape Independence, all right, in this really phenomenal podcast she has with Mark G. And I'm not going to spill out the beans on what she thinks about Cape Independence, but I think it's really interesting, and I would admonish you guys to watch till the end, because she has her thoughts on Cape Independence at the end of this video. But in this video anyway, I think one of the really interesting points of discussion she has with Mark G regard, in her opinion, what is wrong with South Africa today. She argues that many issues have gone wrong in South Africa, that the part of the South African government somehow hasn't been able to play its own part in delivering a safe, conducive environment. Because I like one definition she has for what it is that the people should expect from a government in a nation. All right, so that's really interesting. Even for me, as an outsider, a Nigerian, really, she has a really interesting touch to how she thinks, or what she thinks is the role of the government. One of them, she argues, and for me this was the most mind-blowing, is that the government has to create an environment, right, that makes it possible for a newborn to thrive in that society. In other words, even though we might not see this within the facets of the responsibilities of the state, it appears as though that we all as human beings are born within a certain space, especially in the contemporary times, when we have a pocket of a geography called a nation state today. Now, Helen Zille is of the opinion that this nation state has a really significant role to play in ensuring that any newborn into this world lands within a space that ensures that that newborn will thrive in their multiple capabilities, in their multiple talents, in their multiple gifts that they come into this world with. And I thought that was really profound. And she argues that South Africa, somehow, the government hasn't been able to play its part in this. And this just goes beyond service delivery. Service delivery is actually a part of it, but it goes beyond service delivery. She argues that it even affects parenting, all right? So even the fact that, she argues that in South Africa today, many people are growing without fathers or I mean, like the family unit. This whole mandate of a safe space to allow newborns to thrive actually even impacts the family circle, as it were, and causes a breakdown of many things. I think that was a really interesting perspective she has in this discussion. In this discussion as well, I think I also enjoyed this whole question about how she thinks that, in terms of this thing about construction mafias, she thinks that, and this was also another mind-blowing one, she believes and thinks that the law in itself creates construction mafias. I don't want to spill all the beans, but this interview is loaded. She also argues, and she thinks that really shocking question McGee throws at her, and who is really funding the DA? Who funds political parties? Who is funding the ANC? Who is funding the EFF? Who is funding the MK? There's been a lot of conspiracy theories around how, probably the same personalities or the same groups are funding these parties, and how they actually mingle and really influence South Africa's economy. Helen Zille addresses that question in a really insightful way that actually gives me a lot of understanding on how the funding of a party could influence the direction of a party. Or really mind blowing, bro. McGee, I think he outdid himself in this discussion. I really enjoy the line of questionings, but the most important thing anyway is how it almost appears as though that comment I saw yesterday really shocked me, and how many things that actually seem to be going down in South Africa really might be pushing those proponents, because this was what I got from that comment. Now, I'm not assuming that that's the fact, but from the comments I saw from that video arguing that the Pretoria City Hall might actually be undergoing sort of like, would it be proposals now to be handed over to the Iranian mission for the promotion of Iranian cultural activities in South Africa. I think that this whole debate about Cape independence and the proponents for Cape independence might actually also be preparing for a counter narrative. And I think it's really smart that we start really understanding the perspective from many politicians. I know the likes of Vuyo Zungula is actually of the opinion that Phil Craig should be deported to the UK for causing division, or trying to cause division in a Republic of South Africa, as it were. But there are many also proponents of other parties who actually do not support ANC's policies, and this kind of aggravation with we see the 30% tariffs that might be hitting small cities like Citrusdale. In yesterday's video, when I made the export rep from the Western Union argued that small cities like Citrusdale, 5,000, 4,000 capacity population might be wiped out because of these 30% tariffs that will be hitting the Western Cape, where this agriculture of things like citrus and wine have actually kept that society in jobs and actually flourishing. All right, these 30% tariffs, and also many of the issues that seem to speak to South Africa's alignment to left-wing policies or left-wing countries. We see China, we see the BRICS parties, with the BRICS Plus, but now also Iran and all that. It's actually causing a reaction among a different populace in society that now seem as though issues like Orania, issues like Cape independence seem to be getting more and more attractive. Is this an opening to some kind of silent civil war brewing? These are kind of the things I usually try to interrogate as an expert also in futures research. They're called wild cards or black swans. Are these silent episodes that we might need to start thinking about what's really going on in the minds of the people? But Helen Zille has some really interesting thoughts about Cape independence and what she thinks the Cape independence movement might actually, how it might impact South Africa going forward in the wake of these complexities South Africa has found itself. Let's quickly listen to Helen Zille break down some of these issues and share your thoughts in the comments.
According to you, what is wrong with the country right now?
Right. What is wrong with the country is that the government is not fulfilling its part of the compact that we made in 1994 for the most part. So what does government have to do? Government has to make sure that it fulfills basic service delivery, gives people an opportunity at education and health, and creates conditions to grow an economy so that every person can come into the world safely and become the best they can be, because we live in a free and prosperous society. Now, it's not only the government's job. Lots of people aren't doing what they're supposed to do in the social compact. So I often describe it like this. If we want to be a successful country, we've got to see the prospect of every young person as having to climb from the bottom of a ladder to the top of the ladder. And the government has to provide that ladder. So when you come into this world, you have to be able to do it in an environment that is safe and clean, where there'll be oxygen for you to start breathing, where there'll be a doctor to make sure that or a midwife to make sure that your umbilical cord is cut in a sterile way, that you won't get sick and malnourished in your first months, okay? That there'll be a preschool for you to go to, that there will be a child grant for you to get, that you'll go to a proper good school, that you'll go to a high school, and that when you graduate from school, you'll go to university, and that the government will be corruption-free and providing all the services so people invest, grow the economy, and you can get a job and start a family later. The government's job is to create that ladder and make sure that ladder is there for you to climb. Your responsibility is for you to climb that ladder. So you can't go and start taking drugs on rung 3 of the ladder, because that's not the government's fault. That's not their choice. Mm-hmm. Is the ladder there? Are there rungs on it? That's their responsibility. And they're not doing it because in many, many places there's no clean water. We're here in Johannesburg. For weeks you go without water here. They're not doing the basics. Electricity, Eskom stopped generating electricity. So the ladder is not there in the first instance. A lot of the schools are useless. Ladder not there. But then parents have an incredible responsibility as well. Not just the government. If you bring a child into the world, you have to make sure it starts climbing that ladder and that you, as the parents, both of you, hold that ladder firm so that it's stable for the child to climb up. And that when it's being pulled off by the drug lord on this side or by something else on that side, parents hold up and give support and keep climbing. And parents don't abandon their children. This is one thing about South Africa. So many families are a woman and children. Where's the father? Not there. Those are people who are just as much destroying South Africa as a corrupt government. People who don't take responsibility for their children and live for their children and do everything they can for them. And then your responsibility is not to get pregnant as soon as you can, but to finish your education and to get a job because people are investing, because you've got an uncorrupt government that's following policies that grow the economy. And then you meet someone that you want to have children with because it's the most important decision you will make in your life, the person you have a child with. And then you can start the positive cycle, grow generational wealth, and get a great future for your children. So what's wrong is that all of those players who have to create the ladder, hold the ladder, get to the top of the ladder, are not doing the joint job that they should be doing.
And
or not enough of us.
And according to you, who really runs the country? Because there's conspiracy theories like, the president is just a puppet. There's Stellenbosch runs the country. Well, what's your take on that?
Yeah. I mean, the institutions of this country do run the country. They are often very incompetent and very useless. Some are good. Some are good. I don't want to damn them all. There are many institutions in the private sector that are good. And thank goodness there are so many private sector institutions that can keep delivering services that the government is failing to do. So I don't think that there's any sinister. I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all.
Yeah.
I'm not a conspiracy. There is something that they call the deep state,
yeah,
which is the way the state does things forever and ever and ever. And no matter who comes into power politically, the deep state just ignores them and carry on doing what they like.
You can't dispute the power these guys have. For example, let's just say the Rupert family. What do they own? The Ruperts?
The Ruperts.
They own everything. Okay,
no,
whatever, right? Let's say they own everything.
They don't own everything.
But let's just
own this house that we're sitting in now.
But what I'm trying to say, you can't dispute the power they have because they can literally go to the president, right? And say, listen, if you don't do 1, 2, 3, I'm shutting down all my businesses. And the country would literally collapse.
That's such an empty threat. I mean, just look at the positive things that Rupert's done. He's taken a dorpie like Graafrenet and saved its entire heritage and rebuilt the whole place. It's an absolute jewel. He's created thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs in South Africa. I mean,
Doesn't that come with power, though?
That does come with power. He certainly has power. But he's not a member of parliament and he can't vote for a bill to be passed and he can't get a 2/3 majority for changing the constitution. He can have influence.
Yes.
Yeah,
does he have influence in the DA? Because I think...
No.
Isn't he one of your funders?
No, definitely not. He
Who are
doesn't
your
give us
funders?
a
Is
cent.
it...
I'm not going to say publicly here. You look at the declaration if you want to see who our funders above 100,000 Rand are. You'll see them all there.
Can you fact check that doo-doo for us so we can bring them up? Because I think the Oppenheimers are there, right?
Oppenheimers are there, yes.
Yes. So what does that mean? So like when they fund you, right? Is it I scratch your back, you scratch my back?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not. Whenever we go fundraising, we say, you are supporting democracy. And we always take a witness when we go fundraising so that we can never say, and we will do this for you if you do this for us. Never, ever, ever.
But these guys are businessmen.
Yes.
They
they're
must have an
businessmen.
interest in...
They have a huge interest in having a functional democracy in which there is clean government and policies that enable people and encourage people to invest. Because government doesn't create jobs. The private sector creates jobs. And the private sector will never invest if there's a corrupt government that can't deliver services. That's why so many businesses are moving now to Cape Town and the Western Cape. Because you can't function in a place where there's no electricity. You can't function in a place where there's no water. You can't function in a place where sewage is running into the drinking water. You've got to have good government.
Yeah.
And that is their interest.
So those funders, don't they have a right to come back to you in the event they're unhappy to make like complaints or whether
No more right
they
than you
demands?
or anybody else who supports us. No, our branches have more power than our funders. Because our branches come to the Congress and they vote. Our funders don't.
Speaking of Cape Town, right? Every time I land in Cape Town, I always ask myself, why are those shacks, like, as soon as you're at the airport, you leave the airport, you see those shacks around there. How does that happen? Like, why
But you see a lot of not shacks as well, because we've built a huge number of houses along that airport support road. But, I mean, I can go into the airport, the people immediately on the left as you're coming out of the airport.
Yes.
Those people have invaded land that we cannot develop. It's undevelopable because of the water table.
So how are they there?
Because they invaded the land.
Jeez.
They move in there.
And there's nothing you can do.
And then there was shacks right along on the left-hand side. You'll see all of those have been turned where they can develop into formal houses, but then immediately they put a shack on the back and the back and the back. So it still looks like a row of shacks, but those are shacks in the backyard of houses. And then you go further up and you see in Langa, where there were only shacks on the side of the road, it's now about 3/4 flats. Flats. And there's a section that is still shacks. Now, that section that is shacks, we couldn't move any of them out, and many of them do not qualify because they got a house before, and then they rented that house to someone else or sold it to someone else. So you can't get a second house from the state if you've had one before. So we've really worked very hard, not only on that place, on every other place. But there is no way, given the rate of urbanization, that the state can build a house for every person who needs one. There is no way.
I found it so bizarre because, I mean, Cape Town is promoted as a tourism place, you know. And, you know, let's say it's my first time in Cape Town. I get to the airport and literally that is the first thing you see. And I was like, how is this even possible? Like, how's no one seeing this?
Well, of course we see that. But where the reeds are, where people have grown there, we absolutely cannot develop there. We cannot develop there. It's not possible. And going in, you will see along the road, we've developed a lot of formal housing. But not only there, we don't try and make a pretense for visitors along the road that you come into Cape Town on. I mean, there's far more houses built in many, many other places. But the truth is, we're a developing country that has massive urbanization. If you go to India and you see the informal settlements there, you can get to the top of a tall building, and as far as you can see, around 360 degrees, only shacks.
Jeez.
And much more dense than ours.
Yeah.
And often triple stories.
Like the favelas type vibe. Yeah. And then in terms of the
So obviously we'd like to change that.
Yeah.
But the way that changes is by growing the economy, not by the state building houses. Because the state gets money, the state hasn't got any of its own money. It's money from taxpayers.
Yeah.
And the more taxpayers there are, the more money the state gets. And the more the economy grows, the more taxpayers there are. And the more people get into jobs, the more they can afford to pay something for their own houses. And the private sector can come in and help building houses, as they are all over the place. And then the state can bring subsidies to the private sector's efforts to make those houses more affordable. But for that, you need the economy to grow. That's where it starts.
Speaking about construction, is there a construction mafia in Cape Town?
Yes, there's a construction mafia everywhere.
Jeez. And you guys are aware of it?
Of course we're aware of it.
Nothing you can do?
Well, the law facilitates it.
What?
Yes.
How's that possible?
Because the law says that to get a big building contract, you have to subcontract a certain amount. And of course, that creates an incentive for anyone who wants to be a subcontractor to come and fight for the subcontraction. And they've called themselves the business forums. It's a big joke, It's got nothing to do with business forums. And all the competing guys come along and try and hold a gun to the head, literally, of the major contractor and say, I'm going to be getting 30% of this contract. It's the law. When you have a contract that says you've got to have so many subcontractors, you're creating the conditions for the mafia.
Are you aware that Cape Town has become like a safe haven for a lot of criminals from around the world? I mean, we were talking about a story the other week about some lady who's did Bitcoin fraud. What's her name? What's she called?
From Russia, right?
Yeah, something. But she's now in Cape Town.
So now how does that make it a lot? I'm sure there are people who do Bitcoin fraud everywhere.
No, it's not just her. There's a lot of other criminals.
Who are the lot of others?
I don't have the
Yeah,
names
you
now.
see, you wouldn't pass as a journalist. A lot, millions. I was just waiting for you to say millions. Quasi.
But what do you think about that?
Well, I don't think that's true. I don't think more crooks come to Cape Town. More people come to Cape Town, but not more crooks.
Yeah. We did a podcast in Cape Town, a live podcast in Cape Town during the beginning of the year. And we were speaking to some of the locals there, and they were saying that housing has become so expensive because a lot of foreigners are flocking in, and it's cheap for them, and the cost of living in Cape Town has become unbearable. What's your response to that?
It's a big problem all over the world. We're doing a lot to get basic services to people. Now, the amount of urbanization has been unbelievable. And if you look at the Stats SA, the household survey, you will see that we've kept up with ensuring the local government does what they have to do, which gets people water, electricity. And we were the first city to electrify shack settlements when I was still the mayor. And refuse removal and road access and all of those sorts of things. That's absolutely critical. And we've also created good services in the wealthier suburbs where we haven't built those houses. The government doesn't build those houses. The people build those houses themselves. And we make the traffic lights work and we make the street lights work and all of those sorts of things. So it's also a beautiful environment. People want to live there. They want to invest there. They want to grow the economy there. And more people want to do that.
So it's out of your control.
So it is supply and demand. There's a little supply and a big demand. Here in Johannesburg, it is the other way around. It is a big supply and a little demand.
Okay. So in terms of you being the mayor of Cape Town, what are some of the things that you consider were notable achievements? I mean, one thing I'll give you guys is that Cape Town looks clean. It's very, very clean, as opposed to Joburg. Joburg is just filthy, man.
Well, the biggest thing I did when I was in Cape Town was I stayed in power. We had a 7-party coalition.
Yeah.
And that was a bloody nightmare.
Yeah.
And then we got an overall majority of 51% in the whole of the province in 2009. So that was really good. So what I think I did was I got an organogram going. I got the basics right. We stopped the corruption. We got the right people in the right places. And I got a very, very, very touching note from someone who retired just recently. He phoned me up and he said, my name is so-and-so, do you remember me? And I did remember his name. And he said, I'm going on retirement now and I just want to thank you. I said, for what? And he said, you came in just as the ANC was going to get rid of all of us to get their cadres into positions. And you came in and you stopped that. You said everyone would be judged on the basis of that quality of the work they did. And because you stopped that, I kept in my job and now I can retire with dignity at 65. And I was so touched that he actually bothered to phone me and say that. So those are the kinds of things that really are meaningful to me, of things that I didn't even know I did. But people will tell me later on.
What do you think about, who are those people that want Cape Town to be another country?
The secessionists.
Yeah.
No. I don't agree with that at all. We're part of South Africa. I mean, if we had to do a referendum tomorrow, they'd all vote to stay part of South Africa because we like the Springboks, man. We like Siya Kolisi and the boys. What are you going to do?
But